In today's news, for the third or fourth time now, we have witnessed interviews and warnings from Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse, all surrounding the imminent Black Swan event being the collapse of USDT Tether. The sources in this video is further proof to you again that Ripple's new imminent stablecoin, the RLUSD, will flip USDT. And it may happen much sooner than you may think, as we also now have confirmation of a Ripple IPO on the horizon, which we can hear in this interview confirmation from Brad Garlinghouse himself on CNBC. Take a close listen.
Do you want to go public?
That's a good question. My pause is, look, today sitting here, Gary Gensler is the chair of the United States SEC. I'm not really popular inside the offices of the SEC, as you might imagine.
Well, the NYSE president was in that chair yesterday, and she said that she welcomed applicants from the crypto ecosystem, IPO markets heating back up.
Lynn Martin, I think, is a progressive example of where we should be. That's not where Gary Gensler is. And so the SEC has to approve an S1. Going public in the United States for Ripple right now, I don't think makes any sense. I think Coinbase, as a public company in the United States, probably regrets that decision. We've looked at, would we consider going public outside the United States? That, of course, is in the possibilities. Right now, it's just not on our immediate term agenda.
This is very huge positive news for Ripple and Xrp. Of course, an IPO, an initial public offering, would allow Ripple to raise much more money, which could be used to fund further development of RippleNet and their technology. It would also make Ripple a more legitimate and credible company, which could attract more partnerships, more investors, and therefore this would have the potential to increase the demand and adoption of XRP, raising its price. Do you understand? Once Ripple goes public, the price of XRP will skyrocket, and an IPO outside the United States is inevitable. And with regulations being introduced worldwide, the timing of this IPO will likely happen sooner than expected, especially now that Ripple are planning to introduce their own stablecoin. We can see again in the same interview on CNBC, Brad Garlinghouse reiterating for what is now the third or fourth time that Tether is not untouchable and that they will lose to the RLUSD. Listen closely.
So you're getting into the business of stablecoins. It's pretty crowded, $200 billion, the collective market cap, Tether, USDC, other players. Why now?
Well, look, I think if you look at where the market is going, well, you're right. It's somewhere between $150 and $200 billion today. I think forecasts are that it's going to be somewhere around $2 trillion to $3 trillion. So that's growth of 10 to 20x where it is today. So that in of itself is those are fun markets to be in, that they're growing quickly. The second is, I think there's likely to be some shifts in market share. Today, Tether is by far the dominant. The U.S. government, for better or for worse, we can debate, but the U.S. government has kind of expressed concerns about Tether and how it operates outside of the United States, representing a U.S. dollar. I think the U.S. government has taken the position, well, if you're representing a U.S. dollar, you need to be regulated by the United States. That isn't the case today, and I think there may be some shifts in how that market share.
A Tether USDT Black Swan is approaching, and we can hear further in this clip from an institutionally important person, being Brian E. Nelson, Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence at the US Treasury, that Tether is a problem. Stablecoins will exist, but it has to be ones that are backed by their government. Sort of like how Ripple's new stablecoin is 100% backed by the US government deposits, bonds, and cash equivalents, 100% backed by the US government.
We've also have observed the increased use of stablecoins, notably Tether's USDT by sanctioned persons, scammers, and terrorist groups. And a key theme across all of that is that bad actors are seeking out those jurisdictions and those products where there are weak or insufficient AML, CFT, or sanctions compliance programs. And some virtual asset service providers are sort of outright failing to meet their compliance obligations. I think the second thing that we've been really focused on is the risks around stablecoins, and particularly as we have seen those become more attractive to terrorists and other bad actors. Is there a way to work with Congress to get an authority so that those stable coins that are U.S. backed are clearly subject to OFAC sanctions authorities.
This is very big news, but that is not the only proof I have for you in this video. We can also see from this clip from David Adefalto from the US Federal Reserve no more. The Fed could delegate settlement to a third party like Ripple. Listen closely.
People say, how can you trust, the Fed to do the bookkeeping? I mean, like I said, my response is, well, you don't expect the Fed to kind of steal your money. I mean, if the Fed can print all the money at once, it's not going to mess around with your bookkeeping. So, we have this big spreadsheet, the blockchain if you want, but it's just managed by the Fed, and it's very cheap, much cheaper than Bitcoin, if you're willing to delegate the responsibility to a third party. But then the downsides to all of that, of course, is you'd actually suppose you didn't want the Fed to be responsible for processing the payments. I mean, suppose, the Fed will likely impose some KYC restrictions on some purchases. They might not process some purchases that you might want to undertake. And so it was at that point that I said, well, we could, if we wanted to, extend the concept one step further. I'm not saying that this is ever going to happen, but just conceptually, you could imagine not FedWire for all, but kind of like a Fed coin, where what the Fed would do is actually just issue these, Bitcoin-like objects, but and they would enforce a par exchange rate with the U.S. dollar. That would eliminate the exchange rate volatility. But they could delegate the clearing of these payments to some third party, some sort of Ripple-like protocol, or possibly even Bitcoin. I mean, we could delegate the responsibility of processing these electronic, Fedcoin payments to the miners.
We also have clips from Germany. Frankfurt Stock Exchange on national TV also stating that XRP could become a world reserve currency. But wait, because there's more. So you can get an even better understanding of why Ripple's new stablecoin will inevitably send XRP's price to the moon. We have this interview here, tying the connection between custody, tokenization, and stablecoins. All things Ripple are strongly focused on. Pay close attention.
So if you look 5 years from now, I expect and I hope that interest rates will be lower. But I also think that there will be a lot of what you're seeing that is happening on the asset management space. We've been talking a lot about payments, but also there's a ton of activity that is happening in the asset managers with BlackRock and Franklin Templeton and Fidelity and others. So I do think that we will see a decoupling between the yield component and the payments component. And I think that probably my vision of the future is if you are the CFO of a large corporation that is engaged in digital currencies and you have extra cash, you will keep that in something that is a tokenized money market fund or similar, and you will get your yield from that point. And then when you want to make a payment, you will convert that tokenized money market fund into tokenized money, which is what a stablecoin is, and then you will send the stablecoin. I do think that a stablecoin is an imperfect instrument for yield. Tokenized money market fund is an imperfect instrument for payments, and those instruments should be what they are meant to be. And then the stablecoins will not be monetized on yield on the reserve. They will monetize on transaction fees.
Instant payments already went live this year in the EU. Stablecoin regulations, being MiCA, are not far behind. Those regulations won't support Bitcoin, that's already been confirmed. They won't support Ethereum, and they won't support USDT. MiCA won't support any of them, but MiCA does support Ripple, and they do support XRP. The games have well and truly begun. It is eat or be eaten. The adoption is happening in full force as incentives are no longer provided to correspondent banking, and they're extended to digital banking. Any banks or financial institutions that do not make the shift, that do not adapt, they will not succeed in the industry. According to the European Central Bank, they will be cannibalized. There are two more important, crucial deadlines coming up for the financial institutions that they need to meet. End of this year, November, December 2024, and Q3, September, October of 2025 next year. Around the peak of the bull cycle, you will be cannibalized if you do not meet these deadlines. And XRP is a part of the system. XRP will cannibalize USDT, which is not a part of the system. And preparations are already being made. We can see here from Chad Steingraber moving 3 billion XRP, moving to liquidity hubs. They are preparing for the new stablecoin, the RLUSD, as the escrow is moving. The imminent Ripple IPO will send XRP's price to the moon. The Ripple stablecoin will act as a major catalyst for this IPO to speed up and as a catalyst for XRP's price to explode. And as Brad Garlinghouse has stated, there isn't much of a reason to launch an IPO in the US right now with Gary Gensler still acting as the SEC chairman. Well, this future is also not far off, as Jim Cramer just stated on CNBC in front of and to Gary Gensler's face that he has lost the case against Ripple. Once Ripple have that official verdict in the court, the green light for institutional adoption in the United States, the legal regulatory clarity of XRP, an IPO in the United States won't be far behind, and XRP will be that one step closer to cannibalizing, to flipping USDT, Tether, and exploding in value. So don't look short term, think long term, and I'll see you in the next one.